Welcome, everyone. We are pleased that you have joined us for today's webinar entitled Family Business Continuation Planning, Lessons from the Lakers. This webinar will last approximately 20 minutes, and at the end, you will be given an opportunity to receive supporting materials via email. You will also be told how you may email questions related to today's content to the presenter. The presenter is Linus Sugis. Linus worked for a Chicago-based life insurance company in various roles, including Director of Advanced Sales and as Chief Marketing Officer. He also ran and sold a successful estate planning practice in Franklin, Tennessee. Linus also writes the publication Think About It, founded by life insurance industry guru Steve Limberg. Linus also regularly speaks at industry events. His new book, Sell Out, The Busy Entrepreneur's Guide to Transferring a Closely Held Business, written together with a CPA and a business broker, is now available on Amazon.com. Linus will draw on his legal, life insurance background and practical experience for today's webinar. And here he is.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm pleased to present this webinar on family business continuation lessons from the Lakers this morning. Thank you for joining us. I feel like this webinar is going to be timely for us and for you. The NBA Finals are obviously happening right now. So for our sports-loving business owner clients, the subject matter is something that they can relate to. It's relevant, I think, for us as well, because family business continuation issues give us lots of opportunities to talk about life insurance, and so it's a life insurance friendly topic. And I think one of the other reasons I'm happy to be presenting this is because it reinforces the idea that doing a good job at business continuation planning is hard. And if you're able to do it and do it well, it'll help differentiate you from other producers in this field. If you can do it well, you'll be serving your clients in a way that other life insurance agents aren't. Let me start today's webinar by asking you this question. Has this happened to you? You visit with a client or a prospect regarding business continuation planning. The client listens to you politely and then tells you planning isn't needed because all of the kids are active in the business and they'll take over after the owner's death. And they all get along, of course, and there will be no trouble with the continuation of the business. Now, have you heard that fairy tale? Today we're going to give you a story that you can tell that will help you answer somebody who gives you that plan for the continuation of their business. So let's talk about family business continuation and the Lakers for the next few minutes. As I said previously, family business continuation planning can be tricky. There's a Forbes reference in the slides. You're welcome to use it too. Less than a third of family businesses survive from the first generation to the second, and then less than half of those survive another generation. So allowing a business to continue after the death of the original owner is a hard thing, and it takes really careful planning. And the question is, why is generational instability so common with regard to family businesses? It's hard to say, but when the original owner of the business starts the business, she or he has a clear vision of business, of leadership, of continuation. The next owners may have different views, and that's especially true. It's especially compounded if there are multiple children with conflicting ideas. The next generation may not have the necessary business skills to allow the business to thrive after the transition. Competitors may exploit instability associated with the death of the original entrepreneur. And there may be some instability internally with non-family member employees after the original owner's death because they're worried about the next generation. They don't necessarily have the same relationship with the next generation. And so there are a lot of factors associated with business continuation planning from one generation to the other, and a lot of hurdles to overcome. So let's talk specifically about Jerry Buss and the Lakers. And Jerry Buss was the one who, in the Buss family, who originally purchased the Lakers in 1979. He was the majority owner. The Lakers were successful under Jerry's ownership, winning 10 NBA championships with some of the most noted players in the game, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. In February of 2013, Jerry died of cancer, and he believed he had a good business continuation plan in place, one that would allow his family to continue the business in prominent roles within the Laker organization and would allow the organization to thrive going forward. Now, at the time of his death in 2013, Jerry indirectly owned 66% of the Lakers through his trust. There was a minority owner who owned 27% of the Lakers, and he had a right of first refusal if the Buss family wanted to sell the franchise, but that was not the plan. Prior to Jerry's death, Jerry made plans to transfer control of his ownership in equal shares to his 6 kids. And recognizing with his planners that having 6 kids in a democracy probably wouldn't work very well, he put his daughter Jeannie in place as the Lakers governor. That's essentially the lead owner with regard to the relationship with the NBA. And she was to handle all the business operations of the team. Jerry's son, Jim, was put in place to handle the basketball part of the operations rather than the business part of the operation. So Jim and Jeannie were the primary kids that were given management roles in the organization. So what did Jerry do to kind of get his kids ready to take on those roles? Well, Jeannie worked within the Lakers organization for years, and in 1999 she was promoted to Executive Vice President of Business Operations, grooming her for taking over the business side of the Lakers. Now, interestingly, in 1999, Jeannie also began dating Phil Jackson, who at the time was a key employee of the Lakers, though he was the Lakers' head coach. Now, Phil left the Lakers in 2004. In 2005, Jim, Jerry's son, was promoted to Vice President of Player Personnel, so that he was being groomed to take over the basketball operations side of the Lakers. Jim and the general manager after that rehired Phil Jackson, and the Lakers won 2 more NBA championships after they rehired Phil Jackson. Now, it may be hard to remember and hard to believe that it was as recent as that because the Lakers have been struggling so much in the past few years. But in any event, in 2011, after being beaten in the NBA playoffs, Phil Jackson retired as the Lakers head coach. And so after Phil retired, the Lakers hired Mike Brown, former Cleveland coach, now with Golden State. Mike was fired 5 games into his second season. After Mike was fired, Jim and Mitch Kupchak, the general manager, brought in several candidates for the head coaching job, including Phil Jackson. Now, at the time this was going on, Jerry was still alive, but he was sick. The Lakers hired Mike D'Antoni instead of Phil Jackson, and Jeannie was surprised by the move. Jeannie was still in a relationship with Phil Jackson, and so the fact that that her brother and the GM hired somebody else just put her off guard. And D'Antoni was not successful as the Lakers coach. He was let go after his first year as head coach. So Jerry died in 2013. His ownership interests passed to his children through the family trust, so 66% ownership in the Lakers. The trust outlined Jerry's intent that Jeanie be the lead owner, the face of the franchise with the NBA. And then following Jerry's death, Jim and Mitch Kupchak, the Lakers GM, hired former Laker player Byron Scott as the new head coach in 2014. Byron Scott's seasons with the Lakers saw a lot of injuries, the end of Kobe Bryant's career, and the worst seasons in Laker history. And so his contract was not renewed for the current basketball season. Shortly after Jerry's death in 2013, family drama started intervening with regard to the Lakers and their business continuation plan. The team was playing poorly. The children got together to discuss the state of the team. Apparently, Jim promised that if the team did not turn around in a few years, he would resign. And so at the beginning of 2016, after 2 bad seasons, Jeanie told a newspaper reporter that she expected her brother Jim to resign his position as being in charge of basketball operations if the Lakers didn't improve quickly. So that's the crack in the foundation that kind of showed up. Rather than this being handled quietly between family members, there's a feud that has broken out and being argued in the press. To complicate matters further, in December of 2016, Jeanie and Phil ended their relationship. And so in February of this year, the Lakers announced that Magic Johnson was returning to the franchise as an advisor on basketball matters. So Jeanie hires Magic without giving Jim or Mitch the ability to supervise him. And then Jeanie fires Jim and Mitch because the handwriting was on the wall, and places Magic Johnson in charge of the basketball operation. To make matters even worse, in March of this year, Jeanie went to court to seek a restraining order against her brothers to prevent them from trying to take over the Lakers and get her off the board of directors and get her removed as the face of the franchise with the NBA. Obviously, this is likely something that Jerry Buss would never have wanted, that his family members were fighting over control of the franchise, and that one of his kids, his daughter Jeanie, was forced to fire another of his kids. And so, the question is, what went wrong? Well, there were a lot of things that went wrong here, despite the careful plans of Jerry Buss. The system of Jeanie heading up business operations and Jim heading up basketball operations no longer seemed to work after Jerry was gone and not able to reconcile the two parties, actively act as peacemaker. The fact that Jeanie had a personal relationship with key employee Phil Jackson and was lobbying apparently for Phil to be rehired after he had retired as head coach made things much more complicated. And so, I think it was also complicated by the fact that you've got 6 kids having to work together to decide who to support, whether it's Jeanie or Jim, and that wasn't necessarily conducive to family harmony. You've got a lot of family lobbying going on, which made family holidays, family get-togethers even more complicated. And of course, Jeanie's future as controlling owner of the Laker depended on and depends on the continuing support of a majority of her siblings. So, it puts everybody in a position to have to choose sides. And because of the fight being in the press and the Lakers being such a public organization, it really makes it hard for family members to reconcile their personal relationships with their business relationships. Now, what could Jerry have done differently to try to avoid these problems? Well, in hindsight, it's clear that these ideas ought to have been considered, because the plan obviously didn't kind of work out the way that Jerry had in mind. But the good news is that as you're talking to your clients about their family business continuation plans, these are principles that they might be able to apply to their own situation. So one thing is that Jerry could have picked just one child to run and own the Lakers after his death. If there were not enough assets in Jerry's estate other than interest in the Lakers, he could have made the person he picked buy the franchise and let the other kids split the proceeds. In the alternative, life insurance could have been used as a wealth equalization, an estate equalization technique, so that the other members of the family could have been treated fairly rather. The second thing that might ought to have been done that would have made things better would be to have made plans to address Jeannie's relationship with a key employee. In non-family businesses, a lot of companies have rules against relationships between employees. Jeannie had a relationship here with Phil Jackson. It undoubtedly made things more complicated with regard to her relationship with her brother. I'm not sure what they might have done, but that should have been a warning sign of potential problems in the future. The third thing they might have done differently is to insert proactively a non-family member into a decision-making position to help manage or avoid inevitable conflict between family members. In the situation now, Magic Johnson, who is a non-family member and who has a lot of credibility, is in the management structure of the Lakers. Perhaps Jerry could have done that before his death, making it clear that Magic was going to be in a position to help reconcile any differences in opinion between family members. That may or may not have worked, but it's certainly something that could have been considered. And then, the other thing that Jerry could have thought about is avoided the idea of family having to work together at all, and just had planned to sell the Lakers. There was a right of first refusal on the table from Philip Anschutz. And so if that was triggered and if Philip bought the Lakers for a fair price, the family members could have simply divided up the money and all gone their own way. It probably would have made family reunions and family gatherings easier than perhaps they are now. All of those things are things that should have been thought about on the front end. So what are the lessons to take from this circumstance? First of all, I think the point that I made at the beginning is something that should be stressed. Successful business continuation planning is hard and it is complicated. A good advisor can help guide a business owner in planning and implementing a succession plan. It's not uncommon, it's very common for our clients who own businesses to resist continuation planning. They may have unreasonable ideas about how well things will work out after they're gone. And a common problem, and this is one, if you've talked to people about business continuation planning that you may encounter, is that the entrepreneur says, well, my spouse is going to take over after my death and the kids thereafter. That's not a plan. That's a wish. That really needs to be thought through and defect checked, because successful continuation planning is hard. So if you find yourself in the situation where the business owner gives you a fairy tale plan, and I use that plan in quotes, for continuation planning, I think your job is to be the accountability partner and ask the hard questions. If the plan is for surviving spouse to take over, I think you have to ask the question, is the surviving spouse even interested? Do they have the needed knowledge? If the plan is ultimately for the kids to take over when both spouses are gone, do the kids have the skills? Do they have the temperament? Do they get along well enough? Does making one of the kids owner and decision maker over all the others, does that make sense? Have they thought about the potential estate tax liability? That was probably an issue in the case of Jerry Buss. Is a bank involved in lending? Will that access to capital still be available after the owner's death? Do have the feelings of owners and vendors been taken into account? All of those things need to be asked about when working with a business owner on family business continuation planning. What are the specific lessons for this case? First of all, Jerry Buss had a highly nuanced plan in place for the transition. He put his children in management roles, so he made plans prior to his death so that the children would be able to maximize their success. And despite that, despite the fact that he had a nuanced plan, that he helped his kids make the transition from employees to owners, one of his kids still had to fire another, and they ended up in court struggling for power. I think it's important for us to share those lessons with our clients, help them make detailed plans to allow their businesses to thrive from one generation to the next, and get everybody on the client's planning team involved in the decision-making process, and probably for our business owner clients, get all the family members in the room so that they can nod and defect check over whether a proposed plan is actually going to work. I want to thank you for joining us today. As always, you can get in touch with us if you have questions about today's webinar. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Jennifer Lawler, who will tell you how to get materials related to today's seminar, today's webinar, and also how to ask questions if you have questions about today's webinar. Jennifer?
Thanks, Linus. And thanks again for joining us today. If you would like to receive supporting materials, feel free to email me at asktheexpert@advancedunderwriting.com. Again, that's asktheexpert@advancedunderwriting.com. You may also email questions related to today's webinar. Finally, for more information about the services that Advanced Underwriting Consultants offer, including phone consultations and newsletter licensing, feel welcome to contact me at 615-224-1291. Again, that's 615-224-1291. Thanks again, and best wishes for continued success